All right, everybody, I promised you a daily wrap-up of today's hearing in the Fani Willis, Nathan Wade judicial scandal that is taking turns of epic proportions. For those of you who aren't paying attention, there is a current pending motion to disqualify Fani Willis and Nathan Wade from the RICO prosecution of Donald Trump and 17 other defendants in Georgia. And in the context of that RICO prosecution, one of the defendants, Michael Roman, represented by Ashleigh Merchant, who is the subject of today's update, made a motion to disqualify Fani Willis and Nathan Wade after having discovered that the two were involved in a romantic relationship while they were prosecuting Donald Trump and others and getting hundreds of thousands of dollars from the state to finance Nathan Wade as an external prosecutor to prosecute this RICO case. The judge in that case, Scott McAfee, is currently deciding how to render his decision on the motion to disqualify, and we were covering that thoroughly. We don't need to go over that. Today, Wednesday, March 6th, Ashleigh Merchant had been subpoenaed by a state investigation committee looking into the potential misconduct of Fani Willis in the context of her alleged conflict of interest and potential perjury and other ethical issues that she will soon be facing, if not tax issues that she will soon be facing. So this committee was started or formed in January. From what I understand, and as far as I know, Ashleigh Merchant is the first person to have been subpoenaed to testify before this state investigative committee. It's bipartisan. There was some dude from the Democrat side of things, I guess, who asked some questions at the end of today's hearing. You could tell that he was a Democrat by the quality of his questions, and by quality, I mean the absolute insanity, idiocy, outrageousness of his incomprehension, lacking of understanding what was going on, and desire to just simply ram through grandstand sound bites that the media would run with and never actually listen to the answer. Okay, it's a bipartisan committee. They're investigating Fani Willis' purported potential alleged misconduct for the, legislative purpose. They have to have a legislative purpose, I presume. I'm not sure if they actually have the authority to recommend criminal charges, perjury charges, or ethics charges, whatever. This is the first witness, from what I understand, that has been subpoenaed to testify to this state investigative committee, and it was Ashleigh Merchant. It was a bombshell. It was 3+ hours of a masterclass of what a prepared, intelligent lawyer looks like. I should say intelligent, prepared, and honest lawyer looks like. No hemming and hawing, umming, oh, let me think of my law. Lies, not law. If only they were thinking of their law. This was a lawyer, intelligent, well-prepared, honest, who was willing to answer questions, who was able to answer questions, and who was able to retort the buffoonery coming from the bipartisan Democrat. What was his name? I forget what his name was. Jones the second. I forget what the Democrat name was. I'll find it and insert it right now. Ashleigh Merchant is amazing, period. She came out and answered questions of this committee as relates to the alleged misconduct from Fani Willis, how she got involved in this relationship, when she was involved in this relationship, what would have been problematic if the allegations are true. This was not a court hearing. This was not to rehash evidence that was already presented to Scott McAfee, nor was it to look at evidence that was not submitted to Scott McAfee, although we did some of that. But I'll give you the highlights of this hearing. It lasted a little over 3 hours. You could tell that the person asking Ashleigh the questions was favorable to her, to say the least. On the same political board, they insisted or asked, or at the very least caused this hearing to be live streamed. And it is important that it is live streamed so the world can see in real time, so that there's no media spin, potential media spin, misrepresentation, and people are unable to verify it on their own. It was amazing. The greatest thing about it, actually, is that it was basically a 3.5-hour summary of the 4 days of hearing and closing arguments before Scott McAfee. So if anybody was not able to follow that trial, or follow my coverage of that trial, or follow my summaries of my coverage of that trial, this would have been the perfect summary of it, and you're going to get a summary of the summary right now. Okay, Ashleigh gets down, testifies under oath, and the details that came out that are amazing. I was jokingly saying that my first notes, as I'm emailing myself, taking notes while live stream commentating, was holy crap. The issue here is that Fani Willis is a district attorney. She was complaining in 2021, give or take, that she didn't have enough staff to deal with the backlog of cases that resulted from COVID, etc., a lot of prosecutions, whatever. She didn't have enough staff to deal with the backlog of cases, so she asked the Georgia body, whoever allocates her budget, for additional funding to hire, from what I understand, up to or 55 additional staff, so that her district attorney's office can catch up on the backlog and prosecute the baddies. Apparently, she was granted in 2021, in September through December, she was granted $780,000 to hire staff to clear the backlog and to prosecute the bad guys. What she did with that $780,000 that she was allocated for September through December, September, October, November, December, 3 months. Well, we know that she hired Nathan Wade in November of 2021. So she gets allocated $780,000 for the balance of 2021 alone, hires Nathan Wade, and doesn't apparently hire any additional staff. And then for the year 2022, from what I understand, she was allocated up to $5 million to hire additional staff that she never hired. Why is this important? She gets funding. She gets tons of funding, doesn't hire the staffing that was, predicated upon that funding, or at least was the basis for requesting that funding, and instead hires as external counsel her boyfriend that she has been stooping, now we know, since probably 2019. Why is this so important? A, she didn't fulfill the purpose for which that money was given to her, and B, she knew damn well that she could never hire Nathan Wade directly because it would violate a number of ethical issues. She would have to get specific clearance from whatever body it is that allocates the money in Georgia, clearance that she would not have gotten because of her relationship with Nathan Wade. So she goes to the state, asks for funding for one purpose, gets it, and then spends it in another way, that being on her boyfriend that she is knocking boots with for close to, a year and a half, 2 years, while she's taking these various cruises, getting gifts, which she doesn't want to call gifts, but getting gifts from him. All right, that's one thing. Another reason why it was beneficial for Nathan Wade to be hired as external counsel and not as staff, even if he could have been hired as staff, which he couldn't have been, or she wouldn't have been able to get the money to pay him because of their relationship. One of the benefits of hiring Nathan Wade as external counsel, he would get to maintain his own private practice, whereas if he was brought on as staff, hired as an assistant DA, or whatever they want to call it, he wouldn't be able to maintain his private practice. So in bypassing the purpose for which the funds were given to her, paying her boyfriend without running it through the requisite legal requirements in Georgia, she was also able to bestow on her boyfriend, Nathan Wade, the gift of being able to maintain his private practice, which, as we recall from the trial, amounted to roughly 50% of his income, even if it only accounted for a fraction of the actual work that he was billing for in that year. So an amazing perk that she was able to give Nathan Wade while she bypassed the legal ethical requirements of receiving funds and hiring external counsel. Another thing that was groundbreaking in this is the explanation for why Terrence Bradley, Nathan Wade's former family lawyer, Nathan Wade's former lawyer in the context of his divorce from Jocelyn Wade, Nathan Wade's former partner at Bradley Campbell Wade, Nathan Wade's former friend, we now know they are certainly former friends. The question that I had been asking for a little while, why would Terrence Bradley be collaborating, colluding, helping Ashleigh Merchant in preparing a motion to disqualify Fani Willis and Nathan Wade? We got the answer. I think it might only be part of the answer. We got the answer in that Terrence Bradley, as I had predicted, allegedly according to some of the witnesses, was not preparing Nathan Wade's divorce proceedings, divorce pleadings. Nathan Wade was drafting them and then just asking Terrence Bradley to sign them. Terrence Bradley wasn't too happy with the fact that Nathan Wade was hiding all of these newly found assets, this very valuable, lucrative contract, from his wife as he's divorcing her. Apparently, according to Ashleigh Merchant, Terrence Bradley did not like the fact that Nathan Wade was hiding assets from his wife, basically kicking her to the curb, dumping the kids off at high school, divorcing her, leaving her high and dry, while not disclosing, concealing this very lucrative contract from her. That's the reason Ashleigh Merchant gave. I happen to think Terrence Bradley might have been a little burnt by Nathan Wade in that he now realized he was signing off on court proceedings that contained inaccurate, false lies basically. And now you have Terrence Bradley having signed off on court-documented lies, and he was pissed about that. I also have the feeling that Nathan Wade had cut Terrence Bradley out of his third of the very lucrative contract that Nathan Wade got from Fani Willis. And he was a little peeved about that. And I also have a little bit of an underlying theory here. Remember those accusations of sexual assault against Terrence Bradley? I have a feeling that in order to ensure the falling out, ensure that Terrence Bradley left, Nathan Wade might have orchestrated something of a coup, someone to falsely accuse Terrence Bradley of sexual assault to boot him from the partnership so that Nathan Wade doesn't have to split his third of that lucrative contract with Terrence Bradley. And as we now know, not only did Terrence Bradley actually get yeeted from the contract and his third of it, he had to sacrifice $20,000 that he had in escrow at Nathan Wade's firm to be paid to that employee who alleged sexual assault. So we now know that, according to Ashleigh Merchant, the reason why Terrence Bradley was even cooperating with her in the first place, they were friends, they had a relationship that went back. It was because he didn't like the way Nathan Wade was treating Jocelyn Wade in the divorce, hiding assets from her, and then kicking the solo mom to the curb after he dropped his kids off at university. When it came to explain what was so absurd about the amount of money that Fani Willis had paid Nathan Wade under his contract, it amounted to like $700,000, give or take. Ashleigh Merchant said if you were to hire skilled, experienced DAs, you would pay them a maximum of $175,000 a year. So you could basically have hired 6, maybe 7 internal employee DAs instead of paying out close to, if not more than $700,000 to her boyfriend while they are bumping uglies, involved in a relationship, taking cruises together. And it would have been more effective, and they would have had actually a more effective result for that money being spent on attorneys to prosecute the RICO case. Ashleigh Merchant did, I believe, testify to the effect that, we all know this now, Nathan Wade never prosecuted a felony in his life. He didn't even have the requisite experience to be the lead of the RICO case. They got into his billing, by the way. The fact that he billed seemingly not by the hour block, not by the 2-hour block. He seemingly billed by 8-hour blocks. Just flat 8 hours, $250 an hour. This is what I did. And when asked if Fani Willis ever scrutinized his invoices before paying them, the answer was no. He would just send these highly padded invoices and basically bill a retainer of $30,000 a month, which is what his cap for hours was as per the contract that Fani Willis gave him. It's wild. The other 2 lawyers in the case, who by Ashleigh Merchant's estimation had more experience than Nathan Wade, Anna Cross, who is the one who's responsible for all of this having been blown up in the first place. Set that aside. Anna Cross and the other lawyer, Floyd, who by all accounts is a eminent RICO lawyer, they were being paid less than Nathan Wade. They were billing less than Nathan Wade. Nathan Wade billed, let's just say rounded up $700,000 over the course of his contract. Anna Cross apparently billed, I think, under $100,000. Floyd billed, I think she said around 100, 150. I might be getting wrong with the numbers here to a T. Wildly less than Nathan Wade. And they had more experience, and their billing also, as Ashleigh Merchant testified, was, to the 10 minutes, to the 6 minutes, not these day-long bill, not 24 hours in a day conference. Don't ask me any more details. Okay to pay. That's what Fani Willis did with each and every one of Nathan Wade's invoices. And he was basically hitting the cap every month, $30,000 a month, at a time when Nathan Wade wouldn't have been doing all that much work in the file anyhow, when the special grand jury had been convened and was looking into this, etc., etc. Nathan Wade wouldn't have even been working all that much at that point in time, and yet somehow he's managing to bill the maximum that he has been capped in his contract with Fani Willis at that time. Just a golden goose egg, or whatever it is. The goose that lays the golden egg is what this contract was, and they would have gotten away with it if it weren't for that meddling Ashleigh Merchant. Ashleigh Merchant went over the state law that required approval if Fani Willis was going to hire an external counsel, and she went over the fact that she wouldn't have been able to hire the external counsel if she had a prior relationship with them. It's just amazing. It's literally out there on the books. Fani Willis, corrupt to the core, but for reasons that we're going to even learn now that we thought we knew before, but we're now seeing the absolute hard evidence of it. You may or may not recall during her testimony when Mr. Sadow, Trump's attorney, was asking Fani Willis, "You've been to Washington, D.C., correct? Did you ever go with Nathan Wade?" She said, "No, I never went with Nathan Wade. We might have overlapped, yada, yada, yada." And then Sadow asked her a very clear, very specific question. "When you were in D.C., did you go to the White House?" There was an objection from Abate, the very ethical lawyer who we now know attempts to suborn perjury from witnesses. I covered that in my stream. Abate objected, but Fani Willis, being a little too eager to conceal her corruption, said, "No, I did not go to the White House when I was there in DC," because she had a very distinct memory of 2 specific trips to DC for 2 specific purposes, but couldn't remember one where she allegedly went to the White House. She denied having gone to the White House. Ashleigh Merchant had the receipts that Fani Willis visited the White House. Maybe the front lawn in a tent. But when someone asks you, did you go to the White House? If you only went to a tent on the front lawn to meet the vice president, you say, yes, I went to the White House, and you don't forget about that meeting. Apparently, Fani Willis not only forgot about it, but when asked, did you go to the White House? She said, no, I did not, despite the objection from her ever ethical attorney, Abate. And then Scott McAfee says, well, I guess we got an answer regardless.
I understand your testimony is you never took a trip to D.C. with Mr. Wade.
That's correct.
Personal or business?
That's correct.
Were you ever in D.C. at the same time as Mr. Wade?
I was not.
Personal or business?
No, me and Mr. Wade have not been to D.C. at the same time. However, since Mr. Wade has been on this case, he's been to D.C. Since Mr. Wade has been on to this case, I've been to D.C. What has not happened is we have not been in the District of Columbia at the same time. Now, the only thing I'm not sure about with what you asked me is if I've been to DC personally, because I got a lot of personal friends in that area. Yeah. But I know that I have been to DC. I did an interview at Howard University. I went to DC for that. Seems like I've been to DC one other time. Oh, I went to DC for the Global Summit. Actually, yeah, those were 2 separate trips.
My next question is based on her opening the door, and therefore I'll just ask it, and Your Honor can decide whether or not it's appropriate. When you went to D.C., did you go to the White House?
I did not go to the White House.
No. Well, apparently I'm going to get the answer anyhow.
There you have it. Next question.
Okay. When you went to D.C., did you go to the White House?
I did not go to the White House.
No. Well,
apparently I'm going to get the answer anyhow.
there you have it. Next question.
Okay.
Another highlight of Ashleigh Merchant's presentation is how Fani Willis, in an attempt to undermine the cell data evidence that Sadow, I believe, Trump's attorney got, showing that, Nathan Wade was calling Fani Willis at off hours, driving to the cell tower near the condo that she was staying at, Yurdi's condo, staying until 4 a.m. In an attempt to undermine that, Fani Willis was arguing that cell data is not all that reliable. I don't know if they don't realize or they don't care or they're trying to save their butts so much that they're prepared to undermine each and every one of the convictions, prosecutions in Georgia. But I have a sneaking suspicion a number of the criminals who may have been convicted based on cell data might be raising that very same Fani Willis argument in order to get their convictions tossed. Another amazing thing that came out of Ashleigh Merchant's testimony related to something that was called an IOLTA. It's called an interest on lawyers' trust accounts. Putting money in IOLTA to avoid paying taxes on income is my note. Because it turns out that Nathan Wade, it would seem, was taking the $35,000 that he was billing monthly with his cap and sticking it in his interest on lawyers' trust accounts, so that he wouldn't necessarily have to declare it as revenue as it came in, and he could choose to declare it as revenue, perhaps when revenue would be a little lower, so he'd pay less taxes on it. And so he was basically using it as a conduit, apparently, allegedly, from my understanding, to potentially avoid paying taxes at a specific time or paying preferential taxes, and using the IOLTA as a bank account, which, according to Ashleigh Merchant, is absolutely wholly inappropriate, unethical, and could get you in a lot of trouble now that it's disclosed. So after this masterful presentation, I mean masterful because Ashleigh Merchant is eloquent. She doesn't hem and haw. You know that she's telling the truth, but more importantly, you know that she knows her file. It is night and day. It is the starkest of contrasts that you could possibly get to the hysterical, frantic, and above all else, dishonest Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, Terrence Bradley, sitting there on the stand. Did you ever go to a cabin with Ms. Willis? 18-second pause. No. Ashleigh Merchant is the exact opposite of the district attorney's office in Georgia, and it's palpable, it's visible, you can tell, and it's embarrassing. The bottom line, this has been aired to the world. This is an embarrassment to the state of Georgia. It's an embarrassment to the district attorney's office of the state of Georgia. People were asking me in the chat, is Scott McAfee watching this? There's nothing that I think could preclude him from watching this. I hope he was watching it, because now he's got the grounds to do what he obviously knows he needs to do, and that is disqualify these corrupt and unethical nincompoops from this file. And there's been a very interesting development as relates to Scott McAfee's run for election for a full 4-year term. I'll get to that in a second. Suffice now to end with Harold Jones II. He is the Democrat minority who had an opportunity to ask some questions towards the end in order to, get the other voices heard and not just have it be someone who's clearly friendly to Ashleigh Merchant asking the questions. Harold Jones II, go watch my stream when I'm covering this and look at the chat. A buffoon. A dishonest buffoon. Set aside the vocal fry, set aside the fact that he was apparently eating the microphone for some reason. A buffoon who came there to argue over one specific case law, to try to argue that there was no appearance of conflict as relates to what Fani Willis and Nathan Wade did in the context of this file. No improprieties, no nothing. It's just Fani Willis bypassing Georgia law, the regulation, by the way, for those who are interested. I took a note. 15-18-20 of the Georgia state law, whatever you want to Google it, you'll see it. Bypass all of it. Nothing to see here, people, because according to Harold Jones II, neither Fani Willis nor Nathan Wade had an interest in the outcome of the verdict of this prosecution. Set aside the fact that they quite clearly had an interest in the prosecution itself, because as Ashleigh Merchant astutely and amazingly explained to Harold Jones II, who was not there to listen to the answers, by mere virtue of the fact that they could incorporate her client, Michael Roman, into this case, they expanded the scope of the RICO case. It would take up days of trial. It would take up multiple trials because there were so many people involved in this case now. The scope of this RICO prosecution was massive. So massive that it allowed Fani Willis to hire Nathan Wade as external counsel. Then he comes in, hides his assets, takes Fani Willis on trips. She pays him back in cash allegedly, which she never did, and there's no record of it. Oh, but there's no appearance of conflict of interest. Hell yes, there is. And hell yes, there is an actual conflict of interest above and beyond an appearance of conflict of interest. So it was Harold Jones II, buffoon. It was just terrible, wasted time. You just knew that he was trying to get out the sound bites that the media can pick. Not the answers. He couldn't care less about the answers. The sound bites of his questions so the media can run with it and say, she didn't prove any conflict of interest, let alone an appearance. Horse crap. Anyhow, horse crap to the horse crap.
The key thing is, that job that you're talking about that you're going to hire with that, with the $1 million that you'd have paid him, if that's your theory on it, that's not going to stay. That's not necessarily going to be long term if you're just you're just saying the money you paid him, you could have done this, because his is a short term kind of situation. His is on contract, so it's short term. It's not a long term contract. It's not going to last for a person's career. So I understand the back and forth when persons were saying, well, they could have used this money for that, but that money was delegated for him.
It was never delegated.
Short term.
It was never
project,
delegated,
so to speak. So it's not anything that a person would come in long term and actually necessarily do. But at the same time, that would be up to the district attorney.
What the hell are you talking
to make
about?
that decision.
No, it wasn't up to her
how
to make
she's
that
doing
decision.
that. I just make the point.
Did this
that
guy listen to
so
anything?
far, from a district attorney standpoint, I would say that they probably believe that so far the case is successful. And we can argue about what's qualified and what's not, but certainly I think that they would argue at this point the case has gone from a successful pattern for somebody that's been denigrated and said is totally unqualified.
And then the latest breaking development of the day, Phil Holloway, who was on my channel for the closing arguments, we had a great time. He's going to come back on later to talk about these developments. Wild. Phil Holloway tweeted out that it's no longer a non-contested race for Scott McAfee's bid for re-election or election for a full 4-year term. Apparently, civil rights attorney to challenge Scott McAfee, judge in Fulton Trump case. Who's this individual? Civil rights attorney and talk radio host Robert Patillo plans to run against Fulton Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee, who has been overseeing the high-profile election interference case against former President Donald Trump and others. Patillo plans to qualify as a candidate for the position on Thursday, according to multiple people with knowledge who declined to speak on the record. He is the former executive director of the Rainbow Push Coalition, the social justice and civil rights group founded by Reverend Jesse Jackson. He's also a criminal defense attorney and a former candidate for State House who has previously billed himself as a conservative Democrat. These words mean nothing. Bottom line, this is a Reverend Jesse Jackson disciple, an activist, and now apparently is going to compete against Scott McAfee in the election for that judge's seat. If Scott McAfee had any hindrance, had any reluctance to disqualify Fani Willis from this case, I think he just lost it. If they're going to vote based on race and politics, Scott McAfee is going to lose this seat no matter what. He is a white Republican judge who was appointed by Kemp, the governor of Georgia, who's a Republican, although I don't know what Georgia Republicans look like anymore. But if race and politics are going to be the deciding factors in this, well, then Scott McAfee is going to get voted out regardless. So he may as well do the right thing and disqualify Fani Willis, unless he somehow thinks By not disqualifying Fani Willis, he's going to win the vote. Horse crap. If people are going to vote based on politics and race, Scott McAfee is going to lose regardless of whether or not he disqualifies Fani Willis. And now he has all the grounds in the world to do that. In fact, disqualify her, disqualify Nathan Wade, and maybe even dismiss the charges. Who knows? And then if he loses his bid for election, his full 4-year term, well, you know what Scott McAfee's going to do? He's going to go work in-house in private counsel, and he's going to make a buttload more money than he would ever make as a judge in Georgia. Who knows what he wants to do professionally? But that's what is going to be the outcome in all likelihood. I think he has just lost whatever incentive he had to not disqualify Fani Willis. But lo and behold, pressure tactics, you got an activist now running against Scott McAfee. And if people haven't learned their lessons from having elected Fani Willis in the first place, if people aren't fed up with the corruption that is there, plain to see, I don't know what is going to be required to change their minds. I mean, it's the question that Dan Bongino always asks, is it bad enough yet? You're looking at this case, is it bad enough for you yet? By the way, you get Fani Willis lying about having gone to the White House to collude with VP Kamala Harris, it would seem, because on that little note there, her visit to the White House, it said VP in the tent on the lawn. You've got Fani Willis, corrupt to the core, squandering taxpayer dollars to give to her boyfriend so he can turn around and give it to her with gifting luxurious trips. Oh, I almost forgot. At one point, Harold Jones II, in trying to undermine the inappropriateness of these vacations that Fani Willis was taking with Nathan Wade, asked Ashleigh Merchant, Forbes' article says that the average American takes a $2,000 to $4,000 vacation. So there's nothing extravagant about these vacations. The average American takes a $2,000 to $4,000 trip a year.
You know what maybe the average American spends on a vacation?
Not this much.
You don't think?
No.
Have you looked?
Huh? No, I haven't, but I would imagine most of the Fulton County
This
taxpayers
idiot thinks
would love to go on any of these trips.
$20,000.
Well, you know, if you, since you speculate a lot, I could speculate and say that you did look, and that's why you didn't put it in your brief.
I did
Because
not.
Forbes actually says that the average is about $3,700 that a person spends on a vacation.
Not
For a
4
single
in a
person
year.
or a family?
Family of 4. Well, at that time, they were taking 2 and 3 at the time.
That makes
so
sense.
That makes,
so
that's
these,
about
no,
normal.
hold on. I want to make sure that's clear. You said they were taking 2 or 3 at a time. All of these, I made very certain that my numbers only included the 2 of them. So the one trip that they took
But
his
it's
mother on,
2 adults.
2 adults, yes.
It's nothing extraordinary.
So you said $3,700 for a family of 4. That does not surprise me. For families that can afford to go on vacations, does not surprise me.
So it's basically what the average American would do.
No, the average American who
that's-
can afford to
Yes.
go.
This is half of that for 2 people. So you said $3,700 for a family of 4. This is for 2 people,
Right, it's just 2 people.
right? So
Yes.
that,
Double it.
yes.
So it wouldn't necessarily be habit. It's 2 adults. Bottom line is it's not extravagant. It's not lavish, is it?
The law
Can you
only said
imagine these
$100.
arrogant, pompous
not loud.
Democrat
And that's one of the reasons I didn't
fuckers?
include all the Ubers.
Holy cows. First of all, Harold Jones II, the only Americans that take a $2,000 to $4,000 vacation a year are the ones that can afford doing it. Go take a poll, you Democratic elitist prick, to find out whether or not the average American is taking vacation, let alone a $4,000 vacation a year. But it gets even worse than that. Ashleigh Merchant didn't really pull this up during the answer to these questions. It wasn't that Fani Willis and Nathan Wade took one $4,000 trip in a year. They took 5 cruises within a 7-month period. They took 3 in 2022 and 2 in 2023, all of which were at the very least several $1,000s. So they didn't take 1 in a year, Harold Jones II. They took 5 in 7 months. I counted it. This is the level of elitism, detachment, unreasonability of the typical Democrat politician. They think everyone is as loaded as they are. They think everyone is living the lap of luxury that they're living. Detached and above all else, dishonest and corrupt. So you have Fani Willis elected. And if the people of Georgia haven't learned their lesson from having elected Fani Willis, go ahead and elect another activist judge and see what happens. It's worked out so well for you. That's the update. That's the summary. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Viva Frei on Rumble. Viva Frei on Twitter. VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com on Locals. Stay tuned. There will be a follow-up, and I'll be going live daily with short videos, as they are warranted given what's going on in the world and the news. So get out there, talk to people, exercise, and now you know you vlog. Peace out. Booyah.